Hi everyone, Neil Paterson here. The Sky News Daily will be on its way in just a moment. But before we begin, we do have a little favour to ask. Subscribe to the podcast. You will have noticed the news is moving at a frenetic pace these days, almost too quick to actually get a grip on what's happening. So if you sign up, I can guarantee each evening you'll have a podcast download to your device that will make sense of at least one big story. So if you like what you hear, give us a follow. Coming up in just a moment, though, sweet FA Cup, that is. Lowly Plymouth beat mighty Liverpool in an upset for the ages. Does this mean there's life in the competition yet?
Donald Trump is heading back to the White House.
Together we can truly make America great again.
We are in for an unpredictable but fascinating 4 years.
And we're going to be following every twist and turn for the first 100 days. We'll be bringing you the latest updates and analysis first thing every morning. So join me, James Matthews.
Me, Martha Calnett.
And me, Mark Stone.
For Trump 100 every weekday at 6 a.m, wherever you get your podcasts.
Football. It always seems to have the capacity to surprise. Hi everyone, I hope you had a great weekend, and if you're a fan of Plymouth Argyle, I know that you did. The team, facing relegation from English football's second tier, did the impossible, or more accurately, the unthinkable, and knocked Liverpool out of the FA Cup, having already beaten another Premier League side, Brentford, the round before. Here's hero of the hour, Plymouth's manager, Miron Muslic, after the match.
Guys, just give me 45 seconds. We spoke a lot before, we spoke a lot during this game, okay? Remember one thing, this day belongs to you. We left a new chapter in Argyle history, and no one will ever take this away from us. So we are now part of this history, and we left our fingerprints, our names, our passion, our attitude, our heart over there. Nobody will take this. This will stay forever. Enjoy it today, and we go from tomorrow on again fully together.
Obviously, the club supporters are still being scraped off the ceiling, but we managed to get hold of Plymouth superfan Julie Cardle. She's been going to Home Park since she was 20, all the way back in 1971.
I've travelled thousands of miles with the Argyle and hardly missed a game away or at home. We've had a lot of ups and downs lately, especially this season. I'm still buzzing after yesterday's win against the best team in the world, Liverpool, and hope it carries on. Green Army.
And big thanks to Julie for that. We will be speaking to another fan, the host of the Argyle Life podcast, just a bit later. First, though, our sport correspondent, Rob Harris, is back. Rob, how on earth did this happen?
Incredible resilience. These moments can happen in the Cup. If you have switched your lineup so noticeably as Liverpool did, 10 changes from the team that beat Tottenham Hotspur in the Carabao Cup, then there will be an unfamiliarity. Players coming back from injury as well, and they're not used to the system, and maybe a degree of complacency to a degree, thinking you're going to the worst team in the second tier and thinking that you can go and run away with it. But they certainly found them stubborn opponents.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to run through the entire team sheet, but we've got to give mention to a couple of players, presumably. The Plymouth Argyle goalie and whoever it was that put that penalty in the back of the bin.
Connor Hazard absolutely solid between the posts, keeping everything out that was coming towards him. There was a barrage, we thought, with all the time added on at the end. In fact, Liverpool would conjure something, but they just couldn't. And the scorer himself was Ryan Hardy, who some was a mascot, making it an even more emotional occasion.
You got to love that for the wee man on a day like that. But look, I mean, you've alluded to it already. I mean, Plymouth have been having a rough old time of it. I mean, Wayne Rooney was manager, out on his ears just before Christmas. But tell us a little bit about the man who's come in and replaced him, and within, a month and a half, has produced one of the best results in the club's history. His name, Miron Muslic.
Yeah, what must Wayne Rooney be thinking? This guy comes in and really turns around to be managing in Belgium. So what a journey it's been for him. He had to flee Bosnia due to the war as a 9-year-old in 1992. His family went to Austria and they were refugees there, and he found his solace through football. It's his way of connecting when he couldn't speak the language, and that gave him his connection, and he's made a steady ascent through the world of football. And to get a real sense of just what he's been dealing with at Plymouth, just compare the values of the squad. Plymouth squad valued at £17 million.
17?
Yes.
What? That's the wage bill for Premiership sides, isn't it? You know, a monthly wage bill.
Yeah, and many more on top of that as well. And for Liverpool, their squad is valued at over £800 million by Transfermarkt.
I mean, it's when you put it into to such terms, it does feel like this is one of those kind of once in a blue moon moments. But I suppose that is ultimately what the FA Cup often throws up, isn't it? The opportunity for the minnows to stick it to the overpaid, overbloated whales.
That magic of the FA Cup, and you're watching for those possible upsets, and these giant killings don't come around that often in terms of this scale. There's only been now 4 times the Premier League leaders have lost to lower league opposition. But this might give you a bit of a sense of where the FA Cup ranks these days. When it happened in 2015 and Chelsea lost to Bradford, they went on to win the Premier League that year. When Manchester City lost to Wigan in 2018, they went on to win the Premier League. So where does the FA Cup really rank? I think we see with the changes that are made to lineups, Liverpool's 10 changes at Plymouth, that it is clearly about now the Premier League, the Champions League, and not just about status, it's about finances.
Rob, in terms of the cash, how much more will Plymouth get simply by advancing to the 5th round? Look, I know you've got gate receipts and sponsorship and all the rest of it, but how much more money will they actually get simply for progressing in the competition?
So they've now already banked £120,000 for reaching the 5th round. If they were to win that, they would get their total rising to £225,000.
Which is not pocket change to a club like Plymouth Argyle, presumably.
No, that will significantly boost their income in a way they hadn't expected a cup run, as well as all the gate receipts as well from the 5th round match. Another game to factor in.
We will return to Plymouth in just a second. But can we, just for a moment, Rob, cast our eyes north of the border, where there was a similar little bit of giant killing going on at the weekend? The glee in my voice, if it's not coming through on the podcast audio, as a Celtic fan, seeing Rangers go down to Queen's Park, of all things.
This is one of the biggest upsets in Scottish Cup history. Queen's Park, a team that only turned professional in 2019. Rangers playing at home at Ibrox, the mighty Ibrox, managing to lose 1-0.
And you were telling me before we started recording, the headline writers have been having a bit of a field day with this one.
Yeah, so we have to go back quarter of a century to almost the anniversary of one of the most famous headlines in sports history, perhaps, when Celtic were beaten by Inverness Caledonian Thistle. And the headline was...
I've got to do it in a Scottish accent here, Rob. Super Cali go ballistic, Celtic are atrocious. That was fantastic writing.
And they're reworking the 2025 edition. Super Callum goes ballistic, Rangers are atrocious.
Hey, look, recycling, some most sincere form of flattery. Rob, though, just bringing it back to Plymouth, the FA Cup itself, I mean, hasn't it lost a little bit of its cachet in terms of the view of supporters? I mean, we no longer have replays when there's a draw in these matches. One of the things that I think the lower league clubs were complaining heartily about, and the clubs at the top, frankly, I mean, their suggestion is that they're playing far too much as it is already.
So when we talk about Liverpool changing their team and their priorities being the Champions League and the Premier League, all these issues do interlink. This is the season with no replays from the first round onwards because European competitions have expanded. Liverpool finished top of this new look 36-team Champions League phase. It was previously a group stage with 32 teams and 6 matches rather than 8 per team. Well, they've had to play those additional 2 games in January. That's the reason why something had to give. And it was FA Cup replays. And the thinking was, teams would potentially be missing out on their lucrative trips to Premier League grounds. But at Plymouth has shown if you can get the result done at your home ground, then you get through to the next round, and you've got that sort of less welcoming environment, perhaps. Although it's not quite roughing it at Plymouth.
I mean, here's the thing: why is it in this country, Rob, that when it comes to sport, if you don't have a stake in the fight, if you don't have a side that you naturally favour, we all tend to support the underdog? I mean, it feels like we often wait for tournaments, for competitions to come along and surprise us, and we love nothing more than an Eddie the Eagle face planting off a ski jump, or a team like Plymouth Argyle defeating, and I'll say it again, arguably the best team in the world.
It's those unpredictable moments and the ones that can gather people around a particular moment. We talk about this era of sort of fragmented television. Live sport and live news is something that brings the audiences to share that moment together.
Yeah, probably more sport than news, I'd say, these days. But yeah, I mean, is it that collegiate, communal feeling that we don't get anywhere else? Or is it just genuinely, we like to see successful people fail?
And to show they have fallibilities as well. The fact Liverpool, for all their greatness this season, that you can see them subject to an upset. And that's why we still watch the FA Cup for these moments. So there's a bit of glee, perhaps, the fact that money can't just buy all the success, and there is more of a level playing field. It also gives hope to any team that starts out in the FA Cup, and they start in the pre-qualifying rounds in the summer from the very depths of the lower leagues, and ultimately every team starting from the bottom could ultimately reach Wembley. Even if you really could, from the 8th, 9th, 10th tier, you could make it all the way up there. Which is why there is so much opposition to things like closed Super Leagues existing, because it ruins the dream of the pyramid from being able to start from the very bottom and climb all the way to the top. In this case, every team that enters the FA Cup can ultimately reach the final at Wembley. Yeah,
football. It is a beautiful game, but it is also a funny old game at the same time. Thanks, Rob. And a reminder that if you're enjoying what you're hearing, you can make sure you get access to the Daily just as soon as it's published. Simply give us a follow on your podcast app or audio streaming service. I'm back in a moment with the host of the Argyle Life podcast to hear what this unbelievable result means to the fans.
Donald Trump is heading back to the White House.
Together we can truly make America great again.
We are in for an unpredictable but fascinating 4 years.
And we're going to be following every twist and turn for the first 100 days. We'll be bringing you the latest updates and analysis first thing every morning. So join me, James Matthews.
Me, Martha Kalnick.
And me, Mark Stone.
For Trump 100, every weekday at 6 a.m, wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, clearly, that was a fantastic day for Plymouth Argyle's players and manager. But I'm wondering if it was perhaps an even better day for the club's, well, let's put it this way, slightly suffering fan base. Let's find out. Joe Bell is host of the Argyle Life podcast, and he joins us on the Daily. Joe, how's the head this morning?
The head's in a slightly fragile state, I won't lie. I'm glad I booked this week off work well in advance, not knowing that we'd even get to the fourth round of the FA Cup. But yeah, no, I reaped the rewards of that last night. I made sure that I well and truly enjoyed the result. But no, the head's still spinning, and not just from the night out. It's just an incredible achievement that Miron, Muslic and the side have pulled off. It's genuinely staggering. This doesn't happen to a club like Plymouth Argyle.
Joe, just tell me what on earth was going through your mind. Those last few lengthy minutes of injury time must have been dire for you. But then, of course, the final whistle comes.
Yeah, I thought the referee was nearly faultless through his performance, and then he produced 9 minutes of stoppage time, and I almost gave myself a hernia, I think. It was just an incredible... It seemed to go on for 90 minutes, though, that stoppage time. It just felt to be going on forever and ever, and literally, I can vouch that everybody around me in the stands where I sit was literally heading every ball. They were kicking every clearance. We were willing them to get over the line. So, it's a wonderful achievement, and the emotions were all over the place when that final whistle went. I'm quite happy to go public and say I was a blubbering wreck at full time. It just, everything built up to be let out in that one moment, and for it to happen in this season of all the seasons, where almost everything's going wrong for us at the moment, to be doing what we're doing and to beat two very good Premier League sides whilst keeping 2 clean sheets, which is a rare feat in its own right, is genuinely incredible. And I don't want to understand it. I just want to revel and live in the moment.
I suspect that the supporters of Plymouth Argyle are already big fans of the sound of Muslic. You know what I'm doing there, your coach, your manager. I mean, how much do you think this was down to him? I mean, he's only been in the job for 5 minutes.
It's incredible the work that he's doing in such a short space of time. One thing Miron Muslic's style of play is built on is hard work, and his life story is eye-opening. for anybody, the hard work he's had to go through to get his career off the ground. And he wants to instill that in the players, that nothing is impossible and you have to believe and realise your dreams. And yesterday they did that.
Do you think a corner has now been turned in terms of the battle to avoid relegation? I mean, would you take relegation if you got through, I don't know, maybe to the semis of the FA Cup?
We were talking last night about whether or not we'll be able to deal with a European run next year after winning the FA Cup whilst also playing League One football, but I'm hoping that we'll be playing Championship football and doing it instead. We've had the impossible task twice. Nobody gave us a sniff at Brentford at the start of the month, and we went there and got a 1-0 win, and absolutely nobody gave us a chance yesterday. But nothing can now be impossible for this group of players. 5-6 weeks ago, it looked like a lost cause. It looked, we looked down and out mentally, physically. We looked so drained, but Miran Muslic and his backroom team have really lifted the whole building, and we have hope.
Well, what then does the FA Cup mean to clubs like Plymouth Argyle that are very clearly outside, at least for the time being, outside of the top flight?
I think it's hugely important. It's our gateway to massive fixtures, isn't it? I absolutely adore the FA Cup. My childhood memories, I would only get to see football when it was on the BBC or ITV with the FA Cup. And, Cup final day was always the most special day in the sporting calendar. And to see it being degraded as much as it is now at the very top level is really disappointing and heartbreaking. But the Cup still has some magic left. And hopefully it can sprinkle a little bit more magic for us between now and the end of the season. But whatever happens now, we're a part of history. This is only the 5th time in Argyle's history now that we've made the 5th round of the FA Cup.
What keeps a fan of Plymouth Argyle a fan of Plymouth Argyle? What keeps you going along week after week? For those listening to this who aren't as immersed in the world of football as you.
It's a little bit of a way of life. We're so out of the way. We're in, the Southwest is a beautiful region and everyone will know that. But the way of life down here, we're all hardworking people. We have to really graft to get our coins to go and watch the football or the rugby, whatever it is in the area. I started supporting the club all the way back in 2001 was my first game. And by the age of, I think it was 10 or 11, I was saving up all my pocket money so I could afford season tickets when the season after would come around, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Football is a wonderful medium. It takes you on such an emotional roller coaster, and it can lift you out of some of the darkest places in the world when you need something to hang on to, football. And I understand it gets a bad rap, but when you have moments like yesterday, when I'm an emotional wreck at a full-time whistle of a football match, when I'm hugging the people around me, it's just such a powerful thing. And Plymouth Argyle's a special club that I wouldn't change for the world.
Well, Joe, all the very best of luck in the next round and indeed for the rest of the season. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
That's your lot for today. So if you're enjoying The Daily, make sure and subscribe on your podcast app or streaming service. That way you get us just as soon as we publish. You don't even have to lift a finger. The Daily, back again tomorrow.
Donald Trump is heading back to the White House.
Together we can truly make America great again.
We are in for an unpredictable but fascinating 4 years.
And we're going to be following every twist and turn for the first 100 days. We'll be bringing you the latest updates and analysis first thing every morning. So join me, James Matthews.
Me, Martha Kellner.
And me, Mark Stone.
For Trump 100 every weekday at 6 a.m, wherever you get your podcasts.